Hey guys, you're listening to the Energy of the Untamed Heart podcast, where we talk about uncaging your divinely gifted wild heart to be as free and expansive as you were born to be. My goal is to use our stories, guest interviews, and your questions to tease out what has been keeping your wild heart under wraps. I'm your host, Mielle Fox, and together we will shatter the myths of our old stories to set our wild heart free. So thanks for choosing you and showing up today. Today, my guest is Arria Deepwater. She is an author, a writer for both fiction and nonfiction. She is an intuitive, a healer, and just an amazing human who has gone through a journey like many of us where we've had some moment that has, I don't want to say broken us, but certainly like the kind of V8 moment up the side of the head, like, oh, you better get your together because we got work for you to do. So with that, I'm going to bring Arria on. We're going to have a little convo and just let it go where it needs to go. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Miel. I'm so happy to be here. And I don't mind saying it. A moment that broke me. I have no problem with that. Yes. Brokenness
Yeah.
is not a bad thing.
It isn't. It isn't. And to me, words are important.
Mm,
Obviously, and you as a writer, words are probably important for you as well. And I do struggle a little bit with the concept of are we broken? Broken as in like you drop the egg on the floor and there's no putting that baby back together,
mm.
little Humpty Dumpty. Or are we broken like those beautiful Japanese vases or vases that are then reassembled with liquid gold so that they take on a whole new level, a whole new meaning.
Mm.
So I sometimes kind of struggle with the word broken because I kind of feel like, well, we're not shatterable where there's no place to come back from. So
Yes.
I kind of like to call it dinged and damaged sometimes, or
Yes.
dinged up a little, but I
Dented.
I dented a little bit, sure, but you can take a can of soup that's got a dent, and as long as you don't mess the data service up on it, you can still eat from it,
That's
and same
true.
thing with us as humans. We get, I mean, why are we here on Earth? To get a little dinged up. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here for the journey. We're here for all of it, and you're not coming out of it unscarred, unscathed, and we'll use the word broken, a little bit broken. That's
Yeah.
just the journey. That's the gig.
It
So
is. It is
it
the
is.
gig.
It is. But the other thing that it makes me laugh because I, like you, have been as down as you can get, as deep as you can go, as quote unquote broken as one can feel, where you feel like, holy man, there's nowhere to go but up from here. Like, this, is this it? Like, you actually stop and go, is this it? Is this what I'm really here for? And when you stop and really get curious and say, is this all there is? Like, really? Seriously?
Mm.
That to me is almost the place where universe, source, God, whatever one wants to call this beyond us here on earth, steps up and says, well, we did try to offer you a few messages along the way, but somehow you weren't really listening. So, unfortunately, we kind of had to knock you down a few pegs to get your attention so we could pass the word along. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think I've been listening and some images have been coming to me. And, I think you're absolutely right. How do we use the word broken? And in our society, which is so disposable and so quick to move to the next thing and to judge something as no longer useful or to just reject it out of hand because we don't like it so much to begin with. When we use the word broken, I think we do need to be careful. I think it carries a very strong energy. And I love that. I can't remember the name of the craft, but that craft of
Mhm.
mending those Japanese vases with gold and making them into something more beautiful. And I think we've lost the practice of mending in this culture on
Yes.
so many levels. We've lost the appreciation of it, the valuing of it. And I think some of that goes along with devaluing being broken in the first place. There
Yes, I
are ways
agree.
to see ourselves as you said, being broken open to. And I think it's also important to honor, to recognize, to affirm how many of us get broken by being swept up on the rocks of suffering in our society. It's got nothing to do with spirit. It's got nothing to do with us as being whole, complete, beautiful, magnificent human beings. But our society is wounded. Our society is built on a structure of suffering and oppression in many, many ways. And when we are attempting to find our path in mainstream society, we get bashed up on those rocks and we end up broken. And that can be a good thing because we get to ask ourselves, what's really important to me? Was this the path for me in the first place? Why was I trying to be in relationship with that part of society? Can I find a new way of being?
Yes. So I mean, this conversation is going to get pretty deep, really.
Yes,
We
please.
both know, you and I both know we're going down the rabbit hole. So,
My last name is Deepwater for a reason, baby. Let's go.
right? Yeah, we're going. So, I do have to say, I agree. I feel like society, where we are currently in today's world, it's almost as if there's mm, a dismissal, or I don't want to call it a neglect, but an oversight of the fact that, quite frankly, Earth is just where we are right now. And if you think this is all there is, yeah, good luck. Because there are other aspects, there are other dimensions. There's something beyond 3D. There's something beyond us. There's something beyond what do you see physically with your eyeballs, your chair, your desk, your house, your whatever your thing is. But as humans, truth be told, my belief is our soul has come to earth here in this lifetime to have the experience, to have the journey, to give the lessons, to learn the lessons, to really have the experience. And that equals it isn't all going to be fun and games, it isn't all going to be rainbows, it isn't all going to be pleasant. And I think where there are the humans who either live like ostriches and just ignore what's going on. Okay.
Mm.
All right. You're not ready till you're ready. That's okay. No judgy. Everybody gets to it when they're ready. And then there's people who are so, call it whatever you want. They're so awake, they're so aware, they're so in tune, they whatever that may be, that this journey on this earth in this lifetime becomes actually very hard for them, very difficult for them, because it's hard to understand we are both separate and connected as a soul and a human expression. So we're not just the soul, we're not just the human. Everything is interwoven. And why? Because we chose to come here for the journey. And you can either take it as the journey of drudgery and suffering, or you can take it as the journey of the treasure hunt. Is a treasure hunt all taking me to the gold? Well, you might get your leg chewed off by the alligator in the process. That's possible. You might, drink a vessel of poison. That's possible, or you might just have a great journey and trip and boom, you get to whatever it is you think you're looking for at the end. The whole excitement to me about the journey is what's around the next corner. What new and
Mm.
exciting thing might happen tomorrow, now, in my mind, in my vision, if I'm open, if I'm willing to be receptive, if I'm less judgmental, if I can accept what's going on and say, okay, don't love it, but I'm
Yes.
able to still be in sync without having to be in sync, so to speak. There's like a balance point somewhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
everything that you're saying. It's doing my heart good just to listen to you. I absolutely agree. I think this is the only gig we've got, regardless of what there is in other dimensions and other worlds, and I am in no way diminishing any of that. I I I truly firmly believe, and I've always felt called to Earth to be in relationship with this planet as we are here. And this is a place of limitation. This is a place of finite existence and being in cycles and life, death, and rebirth. And exploring that is absolutely part of what we're doing here. And, it might only be an illusion, but it's the illusion we've got. And
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's what we're here for. And maybe it's not all an illusion. I don't personally think it is. I think this is one real beautiful way of experiencing existence. And investing in it, engaging with it is what we're here to do in all of its glory and its finite endings, its limitation and its limitlessness. And there is both
Absolutely.
here. And the adventure
Yes.
is being, I pulled the Fool this morning in my tarot cards. And I was like, yes, thank you. Haven't seen you for a while. But to be at the beginning, to have that beginner's mind and that sense of I'm off for an adventure and let's see what's around the next corner. Absolutely. It seems
Yes.
like it's the energy of the day, Meow. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it is. It is beautiful. It really is, and it's so funny because I do numerology, and the universal card contract card for today is a card of self-worth, self-awareness, self recognition in what one values, your integrity, and how do you choose to show up physically, like in whatever place you are or whatever you do. And so there's a lot of analogies between all of these different modalities that basically they're just means to bring messages. They're means to convey a language of energy in some way. And people use all kinds of things to do that. And they do other things, various rituals and various experiences. And it's all about how connected do you choose to be. And I use the words purposely choose to be, your free will and choice to choose whether you believe or don't believe in any given thing, and whether you choose to recognize what you're really doing here. Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
really here for? My personal thing is I think we're all little divine sparks of love. That's just me. That's what I believe. I believe we all came here. We're all very unique and different because we're all supposed to experience something a little bit different. We're all here to learn it in our own way, and we're all here to share and teach it in our own way for others. And and then when we're done here, well, we'll just off you go. Bye. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
go back from where you came. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like to call Earth School. I'm like, hey, you know what you like on a field trip? You're like, here you are for whatever your time is. Who knows what your time is? And it's sort of like when you're a kid in third grade and they say you're going on the field trip to the museum. You can either be like, woohoo, going to the museum and have a great time with your peeps, or you can be that kid that's like, oh, I'm gonna, throw spitballs on the bus, and I'm gonna, leave my candy bar wrapper in the bathroom. And these are all choices one makes. We're all on a field trip, but you can choose what does your field trip need to look like for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a huge piece of how do we go through our journey here on Earth with a recognition that honestly it's a blip on the screen. I mean, I know people think like it's this big long lifetime, but in the big scope, it's a blip
No.
on the screen.
Yeah.
So when I think about it that way, it really makes me want to say, okay, I can't control what went by, meaning let go of your old stories. You can't hold on to that because you're not there anymore. That's done. And you don't necessarily know what's coming up ahead. You might think you do, but it may not show up the way you think it's going to show up. So you can't really have any much to do about that. But you sure as heck can take care of where you are this very minute and be present and be really in the moment to honor how are you connected to the earth, to honor how are you connected to whatever one chooses to be connected to honor the work that your human is doing to allow your soul to do what it's meant to do while it's here.
Yeah. I always ask myself, how do I want to be in relationship? And what do I want to be in relationship with? What's the
Yes.
quality of engagement? How am I going to show up into that? How am I going to practice that relationship? And what principles are going to come into play to guide and move and shape all of that? Where am I
Mm-hmm.
going to practice grief and honor the limits, honor the finite nature of it? Where am I going to practice love and throw myself open to the limitlessness of it, the kindness, the depths of generosity that is life? How am I going to practice patience and just really come with a gentle awareness to everything and let it have its own pace and not attempt to force my will or push at that pace and try to create it into something that it's not? Where am I going to be grateful? How am I going to be grateful? How are all the thousands of ways all day long that I can practice gratitude? Those are the questions that guide me, and I love this conversation. It's all about how are we going to be in relationship, and what are we going to be in relationship with? Where are we going to place our attention, and what is the
Yeah,
quality of that attention?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the earth, the world, the collective, whatever phrase one wants to put to it, is experiencing. Hmm, I don't know if I'll be alive for the whole thing, truthfully. I mean, I'm in my 60s, so who knows? I don't know. But a significant shift is definitely you can feel it. You can feel that there is a shift and a change in how is the collective moving as compared to, let's say, 100 years ago. Not that I was around 100 years ago, don't get me wrong. But what I mean is historically, when you look at just the broad palette of things and you take a look at where are we, it's obvious. It's very obvious that there are things that are moving and changing. And you can look at it on the big level, like globally, but then you can also bring that right down honestly into how are you as an individual choosing to create or not create connection in your immediate environment, because quite frankly, that will then ripple and ripple and ripple and ripple and ripple out. So it's so interesting. It's sort of like that. I don't know. Is it what's a thing that like focuses in and then it then pans out? Telescope? No. What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, anywho, you look
Wait,
through the thing and you can narrow down the view to be like a pinpoint, and then you can open the lens and see the big picture. And
microscope.
so, microscope. I knew it had the word scope. I'm like, oh, yeah, there's that thing. Yeah, okay. Funny.
I was going to
English
go
is
with
almost my first
kaleidoscope, but
language.
that's not quite what she's thinking of.
Yeah, but it had
Yeah.
scope, right? It has
Yes.
scope in it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I really believe that there's something to that. Are you and I gonna make a change for 8 billion people? Probably
Probably
not. That'd be
not.
amazing, but probably not. However, could we make a change one heart at a time? Shift one heart in the collective at a time through how we choose to show up? Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the journey, is keeping faith with that, because the macro can become so overwhelming, and there is the extent of suffering and the suffering we inflict on each other, nation to nation, person to person, neighborhood to neighborhood. It is overwhelming, and it can become so easy to get caught in a freeze, to get caught in a paralysis, and to lose faith. And I think there's also something to be said for not bypassing into only the power of prayer, only the power of energy. We do have to, again, here's that message of balance.
Mhm.
What does it look like in my life to be putting these things into practice and holding faith with life that what I do matters? It's not necessarily going to be something I see in a large way in my own lifetime. And I agree with you. I think there is something happening. I think it's probably a good 150 years old at this point in terms of this shift we're seeing. And of course, we've seen waves cresting in the consciousness, big opening in the 60s. I think what we're going through now is a sort of integration where many of us who carried the legacy of what came out of the 60s through the 80s and the 90s are now kind of reintegrating and rolling over again, and deepening the lessons that we've learned. And we're talking a little bit more on, I am noticing a shift in the conversation where it is this balance point. I think back when I entered into this world in the early 90s, we all sort of thought it was all going to shift in the next 5 years. Like, this is it. We're birthing it. It's going to, might take a little longer than that, but that's it. We are the change that this
You're
world
the
is,
change.
this is it. And, I think we've gained a little wisdom over the last few decades, and we're
Right?
deepening it now. We're putting those roots down. And one of my goals is to really begin speaking about that as a project that is beyond any of our lifetimes. We have to have faith in the longer term project. And the only way to do that is to continue to reinforce this belief and the optimism that what I do matters, even if I never see it, even if
Absolutely.
day
Yeah,
to
yeah,
day the
yeah.
suffering still exists and it still washes over me in waves. I'm standing in it as a stalwart, as a bulkhead against that, and I can bring that light, and I can bring that depth, and I can bring that willingness to hold the difficult too, that brings right back to the balance with the light and the dark, the shadow side, and the suffering and the pain and the brokenness. We have to be able to hold that, what is difficult, and develop our relationship with that so that we're not bypassing.
Oh, I think this is such a valid point. I think, when we use that term we kind of throw it around pretty easily, this bypassing thing. We talk about spiritual bypassing, emotional bypassing. There are a lot of little catchphrases that people love to use now that kind of make me giggle a little bit. But I think the real piece that you're saying that really hits home for me is the reality is the duality that everybody will experience while they're here in whatever length of time you're here for is again part of the package. So it's
Mhm.
not like, hey, I'm going to Earth and I only want that, I want the premium package, thanks, and I want the one that doesn't have any, any bad days, any suffering, any grief, any death, any loss of anything. And yeah, that's the package I think I want. Well, the difficulty with that and the problem with that is that is not how you actually learn all the things that you need to learn, because the truth be told, everything that we do is not only a lesson in duality, meaning opposing expressions of a given thing, but it is also the thing that creates the balance point in the pendulum swing. It doesn't just swing to the right, it doesn't just swing to the left, and it doesn't always just stay right in the middle. It's called a pendulum for a reason, because it moves in all these different places seeking balance. I mean, that is the whole point of it. And to come here and pretend, oh, well, we don't want the bad stuff. That's that is like having only half of your mirror. So your mirror is a reflector in both ways. It can shine on light, it can shine on darkness, depending on how it's showing up. And you will never have all dark and you will never have all light.
Mhm.
And
I consider myself a kind of recovering from the inspirational spirituality movement. I studied to be a minister for 3 years, and I don't get me wrong, I do love the community. It's so full of inspiration and joy. However, to me, my experience in it, I didn't find it had enough balance. And
mhm,
I remember thinking, eventually I got to the point where I was saying, we're on one hand, we're saying it's all God. And on the other hand, we're very clearly looking at certain expressions and saying, I'm sorry, I have no use for you in that form. And turning our backs on it, and living with a disability and an illness, this is primarily where it came up for me. I was just thinking about this morning. There's a common metaphor in the New Thought spirituality teachings where the whoever's doing the teaching at the time will stand in front of the class or the service and put their hand on the wall and say, this wall right here, this is God, this is spirit, this is the everything, all it, God is in this wall, God is in the atoms, God is in every aspect of life, spirit is here and present in all things, fully and completely. And yet, when I would bring my illness and my disability, my lifelong experience with these limitations into the discussion, I would get told that's me being out of alignment with spirit. And I'm like, wait a minute, the wall gets to be a full expression of spirit, but my life and my body, it's not useful. It's not the full expression of spirit. And I thought, how dare we turn our back on on such incredible rich ground. And again, what makes our experience with illness and disability, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't sometimes hurt like hell in of itself, but it's how we live with it in society and how we are in
mhm.
relationship with it in society. And when it is marginalized, when it is diminished, when it is labeled as less than useful, less than worthy, we internalize that. And we see it all the time in our spiritual expressions. And healing isn't about curing something, it's about relieving the suffering. And that doesn't have to be a complete alleviation of all symptoms, although sometimes that's nice, I must say. I don't I'm again I'm not I am
Wouldn't that
not
be
saying
nice?
I'm not saying I wish pain on anyone. But when I had the breakdown I had 12 years ago, which was one in a series of cycles of breakdowns. I mean, I live with a disability that comes with collapses sometimes. This one was a bad one. And I really had to look at it and say, what do I need to do? And I realized my relationship with the difficult wasn't what it could be. And this analogy came to me of sitting with the difficult as if it is a cup of medicinal herbal tea. It's sometimes bitter, doesn't go down always very well. We don't always want to drink it, but it can be warm and it can be comforting and it can bring healing and sweetness and wholeness and restoration to us. And again, it comes down to what do I want to be in relationship with, and how, when life and spirit brings things to me, when I am placed in a space time of life that has a particular experience in it, and this is what's around me, this is what's here for me to engage in. How do I want to be with it? And do I want to be pushing against it and rejecting it and telling it no? Or do I want to be open and willing to learn and being in relationship with it? And it might mean I'm in a hole for a while, but I know how to be there. And I know how to be there in kindness and in compassion and in healing. And I know that the whole isn't permanent any more than anything is permanent.
Correct. Yes. And what I really appreciate in the way that you're describing this is that you can address and approach and recognize and live with these different aspects of ourselves, either in a state of resistance or in a state of flow, in a state
Mm-hmm.
of control or in a state of receivership. And again, here's that duality. How do you want to, what is the quality and kind of relationship that you will, of free will and choice, choose to engage in your connections and relationships? So again, it's just the thing that always comes home to me is nobody promised you. I don't, you remember that song? Nobody promised you a rose garden, or I never promised you a rose garden. I don't know. Anyhow, basically, your life is your life. And will it always be smooth? No. Will it always be just the worst thing ever? No. But if you can ride the wave, go with the flow. To go with the flow doesn't mean it's all going to be ducky. Go with the flow is, can you navigate the twists, the turns, the turbulence, not fight against it, to know that at the outcome, when you ride through that, then there will be a place of balance, a place of knowing, a place of peace at some level.
I love that
And
word
I think
peace. Yeah.
that's the battle many of us experience. And I think the other word that comes to mind for me is discernment. So we have these things in our lives, and you can, I don't want to necessarily say make friends with it all. I suppose that's one way to look at it, but you can discern it. To what level do you want to have these various memories, emotions, feelings, sensations, all the things that we do experience? Have the discernment to be aware of how will you connect with it? How will you live with it? How will you spend your energy and time with it? In what way? And
Mm-hmm.
those things are all up to each one of us. So as much as I see people who have from the outside some very difficult situations, and it's rough. You see things and you're like, woof, don't want to wish that upon anybody and would love to be the one to change that. But again, what's the lesson? It's not for me to do the changing for them. Everybody needs to get to their place when and as they're ready to get to it. Will some people never get there? Yeah. Yeah, there's folks that just aren't ever going to get there. And that's their journey. That's the deal. Then there's folks that kind of have some event that's like, hello, we need you to wake up because we need you through your difficulties, through your trials, through all the things that have occurred. We're asking you to bring forward the message of you can still have the joy and the balance within the difficulty. there can be difficulty within joy. There can be joy within grief. There can be love within suffering. I mean, it's not that it's, I think what I'm
Life
trying
is
to say
never
is
one thing.
it's not one thing, and it's
No,
not a mutually exclusive, like, oh, here I'm experiencing this thing we call grief, and therefore I cannot experience, and then fill in the blank.
exactly.
And I full-heartedly disagree with that. I Just to give you backstory, I lost someone very, very close to me in 2020, and the grief was freaking off the charts. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like off the charts. And some days it still is. But what I've really discovered is that in the grief is where I see the capacity of love, where in the grief is where I see the expression of that other, I don't want to say opposing, but the other side, the mirror, the reflection. So, in order for someone to experience the waves of that deep grief often is in its own way the reminder of you must have had a tremendous amount of love in order
Mm.
to feel that degree of grief.
Yes.
So it's this sort of double-edged sword thing where and of course we kind of go, well, how come it's got to be so hard to learn something so good, right? And that's the chuckle. Okay, I mean, that's the ultimate chuckle to me. I'm like, isn't this interesting? I think, universe gives us plenty of opportunities to learn these lessons in a not so crazy difficult way, but our humans sometimes are so blindsided and so stubborn and so wrapped up in our humanness that we don't get it. And then something significant has to happen where you have the experience of the suffering, the grief, the illness, the whatever that
The
is,
breakdown of some kind.
a
Yes.
breakdown of some kind, because it took that degree of whatever that is for you to finally say, oh, oh, I get it now. Oh, I see. Yeah. And so, in
Well,
a way, that's kind of like the ultimate universal joke to me. I'm like, isn't that interesting that, it's always in our best interest, but yet our humans like, no, I don't want that right now. Thanks.
well, yeah,
Totally.
exactly. And let's take a minute and honor the human, because the
Yeah.
truth is our feelings are big.
Yeah.
Our emotional landscape, that feeling scape, that just being in our bodies and experiencing life, it is big and it is powerful, and it starts before we're born. And
Yeah.
then when we are born, it just comes like a tidal wave, and we are encoding and responding to and engaging with all of this stimulus and experience from not even day one, but second one.
Yeah.
And by the time we hit adulthood, we have, 19, 20 years of these experiences built up. And when some of them have been based in trauma, because, let's face it, very few of us get to adulthood having only
You,
roses and sunshine.
you don't get to leave Earth unscathed.
No.
No.
And then that creates a huge influential part of how our emotions process, sometimes for the rest of our lives. And it becomes a question of, yes, it's plastic, it's elastic, we can change it, it's responsive, we can heal it. And then also we also need to bring our experiences with us, not to get stuck in the past, but to honor who we are, because we are an evolving being, and we can't separate ourselves from what we've experienced before. And we shouldn't, because we are this mosaic, we are this kaleidoscope, this shifting palette of colors and light and shadows and shapes and textures
All
and
of it.
limits and beauty. And it's it's part of who we are to be here and to have that limitation. And it cycles back to keeping faith with life, because when we are in those challenges and in the limits, the bigness of it all can really seem overwhelming, and it can blot out the sun in some cases. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think there are times when we don't realize how big love is and how big joy is, because we don't mind it so much. But we really feel it when the grief gets big,
Mm-hmm.
when the mourning and the bereavement gets big, when the brokenheartedness is present and flowing and making itself known and shaping us. To me, I think grief comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and I think there's everyday grief and then the big stuff. And everyday grief, really and truly for me, grief is about honoring the limitations and the finite nature of life. It's about honoring all that shapes us in this reality.
Yeah.
And bumping into those places where, oh, that's as far as I can go. That's it. And how am I going to be in relationship with that? And it can be very difficult to remember that when it's big.
I think that's a really valid point. Sometimes when things feel big, seem big, you lose sight of the fact that, okay, it's a moment, or it's there, but it doesn't need to take up all the space.
Well, sometimes it
And
does,
reminding,
but
yeah,
not forever, right?
not
And it will
forever. Yeah.
move, and it, like, that hole is not permanent. It's never permanent. And but we might carry it with us. We might be in it for a long time. Part of us might stay there. And it's about not having a judgment on any of those things. And
Mhm.
healing to me is about allowing the magic and the beauty of where we are and who we are to interact with where everyone else is and who everyone else is, and to embrace it all. And again, as you said, to practice discernment. It doesn't mean we dive into all of it all of the time. Sometimes we do. Again, my last name is Deepwater for a reason. I like diving
Yeah.
in. On the
Yeah.
other hand, sometimes it's about staying on the shore and saying, no, wait, you know what? I'm just going to dip my toe in for a little while. And it's all okay. It's all good. It's about non-judgment and saying, this is where I'm meant to be, and trusting that,
Yeah.
building what
So
yeah.
for sure. So, these words that you and I are exchanging are just so fundamental to how can we move through this life and really enjoy the treasure hunt part of it, really enjoy the
Mm,
curiosity, really enjoy the adventure, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think the three things that come through are no judging or unconditionality, or
mm,
whatever phrase one wants to put to that, trust and receivership,
yeah.
being open, being spacious, being willing, being in a space where you're curious enough to say, okay, so how might this present for me? How might this feel for me? How might this be different if I were to come across it in a different way?
Yes.
And when we do that, we engage fully in this whole immersive experience that our soul has decided to have here in this lifetime on Earth at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And
surrendering into all of that.
all of it. And I don't really want to hurry the journey, because honestly, if I hurry it up, and I think I've gotten all evolved out, well, then it looks like I got a one-way ticket off. And I'm
Yeah.
not quite ready. Like
No,
I
me
really feel
neither.
like I got a whole lot of stuff to like check out. I'm not quite done yet. So, but conversations like this really like it kind of makes me like tingle with feeling alive. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like, yes, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be, you know, communicating with one another and sharing the ideas, exchanging the ideas. Doesn't matter if we agree or disagree, but just getting it out there and really kind of investigating, well, what would that be like? Getting curious, going back to what was that like when we were little kids before you knew any differently? How can you move yourself through the world and be that open, that expansive, that excited to see what's around the next corner?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's really great, and maybe you're like, whoa, wrong corner, I should go the other way. And that's okay. It's okay, because you don't know what you don't know till you do. And that's,
Exactly.
to me, the fun of the journey.
Yes.
It
And
hasn't been all beautiful. I'll tell you that. It has not.
no,
But
and
that's
it's
okay.
and recognizing the truth, and sometimes we're going to get bruised.
Oh
Sometimes
yeah.
we're going to get bashed and knocked on our butt and shoved in
Yeah.
that hole. And it's part of it. And I just feel so grateful for this conversation. This to me is like the temple. This is practitioners coming together and honoring and celebrating and affirming and holding service in a way. And it's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I so appreciate the work you do with the podcast, Miel, because this is an archive. This is a seed that the two of us are planting. And I think about whoever may be listening, whenever they may find it.
Whenever. Yes. It's a
We've
little bit like, what's that
circled.
thing that they send out to the moon and they put everything like over the years in the box? What do they call that?
Oh, the time
Oh, let's
capsule.
yeah. This
Yeah,
is like we're creating a
yeah,
time capsule almost
yeah.
here. And who knows who's going to find it when?
Yeah. And I love it because, we talked before we started about sort of what this conversation, the shape of it, the structure of it. And both of us said, we don't know where it's going to go. But what I have found so beautiful is it just kept circling around this same theme, and
Yeah.
that iterative, repetitive nature. Spirit wants to say in this, drilling down on it, deepening those roots. And yes, these are the conversations that make my roots tingle, baby. Like I love
Ah,
that.
yeah, it's so good. So
Mhm.
tell us, because I know this is very, very near and dear for you, to your heart. And as such, you've created some meditations for people and some fiction and non-fictional novellas for people. You hold circle for people. So how can people find you and experience more deep water, more of what you got going?
Easiest way would be to go either to my website. Well, no, the easiest way would be go to the website at arriadeepwater.com, and that's Arria with two R's, Arria Deepwater.com. And you can find all the links to everything there. I run a newsletter called Together Between Worlds, because I believe that's where we are. I believe that's what we've done today, is hold that space between worlds. And so that is a mostly monthly newsletter. And I say it sort of notes about a bad breakup with the modern world. We're letting go of so many things in our modern society, and we need to build the skills in the community to stand together. And I generally offer a small meditation out every month with that, and a little bit of reflection, updates, and you can find out about any events. I've just started hosting what I call a rest gathering. I'm all about rest and really teaching that. I'm hoping to sort of bring that into the focus of my one-on-one work with people moving forward. I mean, I'll go wherever people want me to go, but rest is definitely calling for some attention. And it's how I've created alchemy in my life. It's a devotional spiritual path for me, and I love talking about it. So I'm hosting a rest gathering about every 2 months. The next one will be in May, I believe, on the 10th. I'm looking at that date now, and it's free, and it's about an hour, and we have a little bit of troubleshooting or Q&A about your own rest practice, and we want a little bit of a meditation, a little bit of we sometimes do a card pull, and then there's literally actual rest time carved out of that space where as a group we get together in community and support each other in practicing rest, whatever that looks like for you in that hour that we're together. So I'd invite everybody to come to that. But again, the website's got all the links, including the newsletter, which is Together Between Worlds. You can find that on the website. It's also on Substack if you want to go directly there, if you already have a relationship with that site. And if you sign up, you get a free healing meditation called the Sea of Abundance, which is really all about connecting us to that infinitely generous spirit of creation. And right now, part one of the novella, Three Moons, which is a grief story, a story about sort of set in the afterlife, and about it's death and grief and a young girl growing into womanhood in another world that's crafted by love and grief. And the second part will be coming out soon. So if you sign up, you'll get the first part, and then the novella is released in parts after that. So hopefully everybody will come and join me, and I'd love to hear from you. If you hear from me from this podcast, please let me know. Send me an email, comment on a newsletter when you do receive it. I'm sure Miel would love that feedback too. It's
Sure.
great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's always good to know what's resonating, what isn't, and who wants more of what.
And I
Because
should
I'm
mention, I do have a book coming out in this late summer, early fall. I'm not sure that it was originally scheduled for about October, but we're running ahead of schedule. It might get released in the summertime. It's called Descent, and it's a fiction piece. It won the 2022 Fabulous Fiction Contest with Omnidon Publishing. I'm so honored they asked me to judge the contest this year. So there'll be again, any opportunity to stay up to date with that will be in the newsletter. And again, it's coming out. It's about a more than human woman who's learning to find dignity and discernment in her own body in a world that might not hold space for her. And so I'm so proud of that. It's my little baby coming out this
So
year.
cool. So
Yeah.
cool. Oh my gosh. So, so good. I
Thank
can't
you.
thank you enough. This has been so good. And I'm going to put all the links and the connections and the how to and everything into the show
Yes.
notes. Absolutely. It's going to be so good. This was such a great chat. I can't thank you enough. It's going to be
Oh, I feel so
fabulous.
blessed. Thank you so much. And thank you
So
to
good.
everyone who's listening. Thank you.
It's a good crowd that tags along, I'll tell you. I know a lot of
I
them
believe it.
personally, and they're a great group. So everybody catch the episode, share it with your friends, tag somebody, and take a look at Aria's website for her, catch her meditation and her novella. It's just everything's just beautiful. Love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will get all the information you need so you can reach Aria in the show notes.